Senator from Oklahoma.
I thank the senator from Pennsylvania, and the answer is yes, I am prepared. Mr. President, President Trump is meeting this weekend with the Japanese Prime Minister Abe, and so I want to take this opportunity to talk about the need for bilateral trade deals. You know, we've heard during the campaign and during the since he's been elected President of the United States, Donald Trump has not been adverse to trade. He said he just is for fair trade, and I think that makes sense that we should have it. And I think I need to demonstrate a little bit about some of the problems that are out there that I think he can correct, have not been corrected by the previous administration. Bilateral trade agreements with our key allies should be a priority for this Congress, and I look forward to working with the Trump administration to ensure that these agreements grow American exports, especially for our agriculture and our energy producers. Now, for full disclosure, I must admit that my state of Oklahoma is a major ag state and also a major energy state. Of our many key allies, I want to highlight 3 opportunities for the United States to engage in bilateral trade agreements with 3 countries, Japan, Taiwan, and then many of the countries in sub-Saharan Africa. Japan has the 3rd largest economy in the world, but American farmers and ranchers are limited in their abilities to access, and this is why. They have very high tariffs on things that we would want to export to Japan. At the same time, we're buying their automobiles, we're buying their products, and that is one of the typical examples of what I think our new president has been referring to. He wants to have deals that benefit equally America and our partners. So I think we can really do that. We should engage with Japan to develop bilateral trade agreements with a focus on providing new and commercially meaningful market access for agricultural exports and smoothing the way for the increased energy exports. In particular, Oklahoma beef producers are chomping at the bit to get more access to the Japanese market. In addition to agriculture, my state is an energy state, as I mentioned, and Japan is a nation that is hungry for energy. In fact, Japan accounts for 37% of global LNG purchases since 2012. Now, LNG, that's liquefied natural gas. We certainly, I am biased because we are a major producer in my state of Oklahoma. But it's something that they need to get from someone, and yet we want to make this a bilateral arrangement. So a trade agreement with Japan would streamline the current lengthy and I guess pretty cumbersome process for LNG exports to Japan, ensuring that they have a reliable source of energy production and providing jobs to Oklahoma at home. In addition to Japan, Taiwan is a close friend and ally of the United States and our 9th largest trading partner. As I happen to be the chairman of the Taiwan caucus, I know firsthand how important it is to strengthen the U.S.-Taiwan relationship, and which we can do by engaging in direct bilateral trade agreements and negotiations with that country. And there's no reason for us not to. I believe that a key component of any trade agreement, including with Taiwan, is an effort to ensure food safety and animal health regulations are aligned and based on science to ensure any differences do not become non-tariff trade barriers. This would enable us to directly address the ban Taiwan has against the United States pork, because we use an ingredient called ractopamine in our feed to keep the hogs lean, and it's perfectly safe, but Taiwan uses that as an excuse to block their exports, their imports of our pork to their country. Now, this is an issue I've already brought up with the Trump administration and with Wilbur Ross, who's waiting for confirmation as the next Secretary of Commerce. And that's why we need bilateral trade agreements with Japan and Taiwan. But our trade relations with countries in Africa is also important because according to The Economist magazine, 6 of the world's fastest growing economies were in sub-Saharan Africa from the year 2000 to 2010. Now, for too long, sub-Saharan Africa has been ignored as a trading partner for the American government. In fact, they've pretty much been ignored anyway. I can remember when the continent of Japan was in 3 different comms, the different commands. They had the Pacific Command, European Command, and Central Command. And for this continent, with its significance, I was somewhat instrumental in changing that and establishing a new command, which is called the AFRICOM. And so the same thing has been true in terms of not using it as a trading partner. I've been in there probably, I guess, for the last 20 years. I think I made my 144th African country visit working with that continent. And I've seen firsthand the vast potential that's there. You know, when they say that they are growing, their economies are growing, and a lot of times they're saying, well, we're not interested in doing that because they're not large enough yet. Last year, Congress enacted and this is a quote, the African Free Trade Initiative Act, which requires government agencies, the USTR, USAID, and other agencies, to collaborate on efforts to build trade-based capacity in African nations. Now, this is a step in the right direction for America to partner with and secure deeper ties to the fastest growing economies in sub-Saharan Africa. And while some in our government may say not deem sub-Saharan Africa countries ready for deeper collaborations on trade with the United States, let me tell you what's going to happen if we don't. We've still got this country called China. China right now has become very active in Africa. They go there, and kind of the term you hear in Africa is, if America will tell you what you need, but China builds what you need. The problem with that is that doesn't help Africa, and Africans know this because China imports their own labor to build all these things. So this is one of the things that we're looking at, that we can actually come out ahead if we will get in on the ground floor and get involved with these very active, economically active countries. Africa, and we need to focus more of it building on trade in legal capacities so that they're ready to do trade agreements, and when that time comes, they'll be doing it with us and helping their economies grow. That's what our economic assistance should be all about. They grow, and we're going to grow with them. That's a goal of what was enacted in last year's African Free Trade Initiative Act, and I'll continue my work with the new administration to ensure that African nations are not left behind. With China's rising economic might, we need to strengthen America's current relationships with some of our strongest Asian allies, such as Japan and Taiwan, with new bilateral trade agreements, and this will help counter China's growing influence in that region too. So Oklahoma farmers and ranchers, energy producers and manufacturers need competitive access to international markets to sell Oklahoma-grown and Oklahoma-produced products, and new agreements with our allies will generate more economic activity and create jobs, not just in Oklahoma, but throughout America. And I think this is the thing that the new administration is talking about when he says we need to have, there's no justification for arrangements where we are not able to have a comparable tariff arrangement where countries can trade with each other. And that's what we anticipate doing.